Happy July and happy Monday. Welcome to another episode of Wrestling Tonight, live from No Cell Studios on the Ace of Tavern, Acefield Retro. And as always, join with me is my partner in crime, the one bad Chad. What's up, dude?
Not a whole lot, man. We're on the eve of July 4th. I'm feeling patriotic. I feel like I should get out my blue blazer gear or my Mr. America gear. But yeah, good weekend of wrestling, some fun stuff to talk about. I can't wait to get into it.
Some fireworks in the background, and as you mentioned too, the Kurt Angle theme song is playing very softly somewhere quickly.
Yeah.
But man, this is a lot of fun. This wrestling weekend was circled on our calendar for a bit now. Obviously with Impact, Money in the Bank, and then you have the AEW shows, the SmackDown stuff. There's so much on the calendar. Felt like it was going to be a lot to consume, but I have to sit here and say, man, I was able to watch all of it. It was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot, but it was nicely spread out. Yeah, I didn't wake up early enough to do the Impact Down Under, but we'll talk about what went on there. But got to sit down, check out Money in the Bank, and then a few hours later we got Collision, a new episode of Collision. It was a good Saturday of pro wrestling.
And we're on the East Coast over here, so the silver lining of those UK or international shows is this early start time, and midday shows are a fun thing. It reminds me back in the day when WrestleMania would be early in the day. And remember WrestleMania 9 was at like 3:00 in the afternoon?
Yeah.
Out there.
Caesars.
It was awesome. So there's something to be said about a show that you can consume, maybe just at 3:00 and it's over at a neat time. You don't have to stay up, and people had complaints about Forbidden Door going really late. You have really no complaints about this. I know Money in the Bank was much more compact, a shorter card, but something to be said about early in the day. It has a different energy for the fans watching at home.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is because it's kind of novelty, because we don't get it a whole lot. We're so used to those late shows. I wonder how good it would be if it was always like that. I mean, because people do have stuff going on midday. Maybe it would be harder if it was in every event thing. It's happening at 2-3 o'clock. Maybe we would complain about it. But the fact that it's kind of rare, when it pops up, it does kind of give you an excuse to set your day around it and be like, hey, let's just kind of chill at home. And then in the evening time, we can go out and while out and do whatever we want to do. But yeah, I love the change of pace that a midday show brings.
Speaks volumes to the marketplace now, where we have people consuming the product in different ways. And we talked about this last week. We talk about every week pretty much, that people are consuming it on Instagram, YouTube, but also too, if you're subscribed to Peacock, you can watch this at any time. You want to watch it at 7 p.m. Guess what? You get started at that time too. You can watch it today.
Yeah.
It's just a great landscape we're in for wrestling fans. Everything's at your fingertips that you're able to. I remember too, like for the old pay-per-views back in the day, not that we want to make ourselves old heads here, but like you'd have to wait until when they made the replay available for purchase, or you have to wait for those still screenshots on the Raw or Nitro the next night. So, the wrestling fans are just enjoying this now. They're maybe complaining. You guys don't have a lot to complain about. There's so much on the table for you guys to enjoy.
I know. And we peeked behind the curtain. We were talking about before we went live, just fans, particularly American fans, being spoiled. And we are as fans, just in general, not so much like the events we get in our cities that come to our cities that we can go see live, but just in general, being a wrestling fan right now, we are very spoiled. We're getting a lot of great wrestling across the board. I mean, stop with all this. This is better than that. I mean, we're all guilty of it. I get it. But at the same time, like all of these promotions are putting on very fun, respectable shows to watch, and don't lose sight of that, man. I remember there used to be kind of a wrestling desert in a way, just not too long ago, where it seemed like the only thing we were getting on a major level was WWE stuff, maybe the occasional TNA event, and if you were digging into New Japan. But outside of that, it was pretty slim pickings. And now, honestly, every day of the week, there's something worth watching if you really want to like fill your schedule up with pro wrestling. So don't lose sight of that, guys. Don't get jaded. Try not to be as spoiled. Appreciate what you got. And if you get a live event, you got to show out. You can't let these cities like London and Puerto Rico, and all of these international places we're going, we don't let them take the crown, man. They're making you look bad, America. Stop being so spoiled. Go to the shows, freak out, enjoy some pro wrestling, and show them. The more you freak out, the more those companies are like, man, we got to come back here. So Keep that in mind. Don't be spoiled.
Competition breeds success in all areas. So wrestling, where we should be thankful for both sides stepping their game up, challenging AEW, WWE challenging them as well, but also the crowds challenging each other. I really felt like, and this London crowd is always hot. This is the first pay-per-view they've had since Insurrection 2003. So it's been a long time since they've had an event in London, England. But tell me those people didn't see what happened in Puerto Rico. Tell me that they didn't want to step their game up and come with all the chants, all the singing, all those all level things where it felt like a Saturday in the Premier League where you can hear them singing. I love that stuff. I think it creates a different dynamic for the show. And the audience is a huge star. Triple H talked about on there. Don't want to call it a scrum, but it's essentially what it is, the media stuff he did after. He said that the crowd can be the star of the show, and they were back in London on Saturday afternoon here on the East Coast.
Oh, absolutely.
With that being said, let's get into everything that happened at the O2 Arena in London, Money in the Bank.
Let's do it.
Stories. Story 1.
Here we are, Money in the Bank Fallout, and this is one of, maybe the big four, maybe the big five if you want to extend it with Survivor Series as well, but Money in the Bank is a big deal. Usually is a precursor to creating new stars or having these stars that are already almost there take the next level. We'll essentially talk about all of that in the card, but the thing that kind of fell through the cracks conversation-wise was John Cena's surprise return in London. No one thought he'd be there, but a couple of things he dropped in the hints, and this was addressed by Triple H because he made a comment having John Cena saying that he wants to have WrestleMania in London. It's a matter of time. It would be great for the crowd there. Triple H was asked about this during that scrum we were talking about before, about a potential WrestleMania in London. He thanked Cena, saying that he put him, quote, in an unenviable position. And he said that having WrestleMania in London would be tough, saying, and Triple H said this, I wish it was that easy. So I asked you, Chad, my opinion is WWE is a machine. They would not make a comment like that or have John Cena come out and say something like that if it already wasn't announced. So either WrestleMania 41, WrestleMania 42. I think this was already confirmed as soon as All Out was confirmed. All In is confirmed in London. Once Wembley was the tickets went on sale for Wembley, they said we're having our record breaking effort right there in London for WrestleMania.
I mean, if you're a London fan, you got to love that these two companies are trying to one up each other because you're getting All In at Wembley, and it looks like possibly a WrestleMania at Wembley. I do think it's on the docket to make this happen. Now, I feel like this is a bigger thing than just WWE deciding, hey, we want to go there, because we know, like, I'm pretty sure the way the business is structured, these cities pay to get these events there, especially like events like WrestleMania. You're paying. I don't know what the cost is. Is it just a straight up fee? I know cities are paying to bring these events there, correct?
Yeah, it's similar to the Super Bowl situation where you are trying to learn. Yeah, you're bidding on them, and what can you offer WWE as far as the environment goes. So, back in the day when we talk about WrestleMania 15, we just finished covering 1998 for WrestleMania 14 as well. When they went to 15, they had to go and convince these arenas to host them. Now it's the opposite way around, where they're getting a lot of the suitors come to them, and for big reason. This is a huge tourism type of thing.
Yeah, so I think this was a way for one to, obviously fan interest is going to be through the roof, but I think this was a public way of putting the heat on the powers that be in London to make those offers, to bring them there, and to show, I don't know what the attendance was at Money in the Bank, but it was a packed out house. They were rowdy. They were loud. John Cena had them hyped up. He was even kind of throwing the WWE brass and I would say the London officials under the bus in a way where he was like, the powers that be, I don't know. They think you guys like to take over the show. They're worried about, and he wanted them to, get loud, show them what they're missing. So it was a way to like publicly put everyone on the spot to be like, hey, we can come back here. Now we know Nick Khan has said they want to go international, and they're doing a lot of PLEs international. They've yet to do a big Mania International, but honestly, like, did we think that wasn't on the horizon anyways? I mean, somewhere down the line, you just knew that was going to happen. The company is a global brand. They have fan bases in countries that could justify rolling the dice on a WrestleMania. It is, London in April, early April, kind of a risky move. Not risky. I mean, you just might have to, the fans might have to sit in the rain. I mean, I think that's a rainy season for them, but who cares? They're still going to be loud. They're still going to go crazy. I think it's only a matter of time.
So as you were saying that, I was looking up the O2 Arena attendance yesterday was just shy of 19,000, 18,885. But I think the number they're probably looking at, SummerSlam 1992, they want to break that disputed number. Dave had come out there and said in the Wrestling Observer that this number is not accurate. But the number that lives in WWE canon is 80,355, which is the number they want to top. And I think with WrestleMania, they clearly can top that. And that's a number that they're circling. I bet that they want to double what AEW did. I honestly think that they're sitting in house saying, if they do 65, we want to double that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the number that they're going to get, but I think that's sort of this ego stroking thing that we're in our house with wrestling wise. And I think it's a good thing. As we mentioned, competition breeds success, and AEW is going to have this short-lived time to enjoy this. But I think at some point, WWE is going to have their say and their rebuttal. But the fact that they have to make a rebuttal to AEW shows where we're at in the landscape, that AEW is they're right there. They're right there underneath them to challenge WWE, to make them make moves. So they'll never say AEW made them make the move to London. They always were going to do it. Why didn't you do it until they did?
I mean, yeah. Like, I'm of the opinion, AEW will, as WWE has such a big head start on that company. Anyone thinking they're going to be pulling off the success of a WWE at barely 5 years into their company, scratching at 5 years, you're kind of being ridiculous. I mean, there's a reason why WWE is the industry leader. They've turned that thing into something that AEW is very, very far from being. But the WWE fans that always like to point out, the victories of WWE, it kind of cracks me up, because I'm like, of course, of course they're winning. Like, that's why when the AEW faithful cheer the little victories that AEW get, I kind of get it, because you're a small fish, man, compared to this big shark that's dominating the ocean of pro wrestling, where, when they sold out Wembley, it deserved to be cheered, because it's a company other than WWE that we didn't think could do it. Now, WWE going to Wembley and selling it out 2 nights in a row, that's not a shocker to me. That's like expected. You expect things from them. It would be like the CFL coming in and selling out 100,000 seat arena for a Super Bowl type event. You would be blown away that another football promotion outside of the NFL could do something like that. I look at it like that. I mean, it's all success for WWE, but I always expect them to knock it out of the park. They've done so for so long that maybe, I guess some people could look at it and say you're taking one side over the other. I really don't see it like that. I just think that WWE's got to a point where their big fails are more highlighted than their successes, because we expect them to succeed. And when they fail, it's kind of like, wow, I can't believe they failed at that. Where it's the complete opposite for me with AEW, because they're barely getting their feet under them still. So it's like, when they fell, I'm like, yeah, they're struggling. They're figuring this shit out. But when they knock one out of the park and put 65,000 tickets down at Wembley for a market they've never been in, which is a bonus for them. The fact that they've never been there is why they've sold so much there. But when they do that, it's more of a like, it's not only a victory for AEW, but as a wrestling fan, to me, AEW's little victories are for pro wrestling, a victory for pro wrestling, where it's like, damn, there's another company that can kind of scratch at the victories that WWE always has. So that's why I'm not shocked by WWE doing big things, but I am always pleasantly surprised when any other promotion can do something massive. So I went on a tangent there, but that's kind of how I feel about it. Like if they go to Mania 41, 42, 43, and they sell out 2 nights at Wembley, I'm going to be like, yeah, of course they did. Like,
yeah. And the best part about AEW doing well is that, as you mentioned, the philosophy and the mantra of wrestling companies like them, with the fluidity and the marketplace that floods into each other with the Forbidden Door shows, everybody working collaboratively, hopefully down the line, WWE is forced to play ball with everybody in that market. And maybe they feel like it's the best thing for their company. I don't think it's going to happen in 2023, not even 2024. I think eventually, though, the wrestling marketplace is going to be a lot more crossover. And I think WWE is going to play a part in that. They're going to have to.
Well, right now, like, how many Manias do they have announced? Because Philly, right, for 40?
I don't think 41's announced yet.
I had heard rumors. I don't know if it was in the Chick Foley, the Pod Foundation group that we're in. I thought I had heard Nashville brought up. But
yeah, but they just ran SummerSlam there. So unless they're going to be doing the guy, yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I know that they were talking about that logo that came out. Someone leaked a logo, but do a little Google machine right now for WrestleMania 41. If it's not 41, I feel like it would have to be 42, because why would you drop that line? John Cena is a company dude. He's not going to put them in a position that they don't want to be in. He's not that guy.
Bringing Cena out, anyone could have done that, but to bring that to me was a big sign of like, dude, they brought their guy. I mean, you know, the Hogan of the last 20 years came to the O2 to essentially cut a promo hyping the crowd for the potential of a Mania being there.
Right.
That you're not just, and Triple H kills me in his, I love Triple H, one of my all-time favorite. He's in my top 10. I love the guy, but he cracks me up at the press conference because he's playing shocked. Man, he really put me in an unenviable position. It's like, dude, you guys had the script wrote for what that guy was going out there to do.
100%.
Like, you knew what he was going out there to say.
Before we move on to the card, but I have to just say this: there's no feeling of being older than when you see Triple H put the glasses on to read shit,
to read his notes.
He puts the glasses down like he's Santa Claus smoking a pipe on a chair.
Yeah.
I'm like, God damn, dude, I feel old.
I just to give the guy some love. I mean, I feel like he never gets talked about it for his wrestling as much as he should. I know everyone talks about the DX stuff, but I feel like when we're talking the 90s, we're always bringing up HBK, Bret Hart, obviously. And then you go to your Stone Colds, your Rocks, your Takers. But man, Triple H to me, dude, he was my guy. Like, he was one of my guys, especially late 90s, going into the Ruthless Aggression era. Give him his flat. And I love, if you've watched the Kingdom Come documentary on the network or Peacock, whatever you want to call it today, it really shows. And I know it's a company produced kind of deal where they're building him up, but I've always felt like this. I truly feel like Triple H is a diehard fan of the business. Like, I never feel like he's a company shill just making money. I do feel like he does everything for the love of the game. And I just wanted to give that out to Triple H, because always been a big fan, always respect the guy. Love that he's at least a little more in charge. I don't know if he's fully in charge. Like,
yeah, he feels like one of us, dude. Like, he feels like a
does.
wrestling fan with the wrestling fans mindset, with obviously experience more than a lot of guys at the top of every card. I think, just touch on that. I think it's a great debate question. Why doesn't Triple H get the love he probably deserves? I think
it's
a lot
the
of
Stephanie stuff.
I think it's that, and it's also the Reign of Terror stuff where he was booked at the top and he was shoved down people's throats.
I fucking love the Reign of Terror.
I
love the Reign of Terror. Eat it, fans.
2003, my age, I'm like 15, 16 years old. I hated it. But you go back to the other side and look at it through a lens of being a fan now. He was doing masterful heel work. And yeah, I think we look upon him fondly much better now, because I think a lot of people look at the NXT stuff as his greatest creation.
I think that's when the tide started to turn too. with the NXT stuff. The tide started to turn a little bit with him as far as like fan respect and everything. I think that, like you said, the Reign of Terror, the Booker T incident, there were things along that run where people kind of
RVD. Not that it's his fault; he's not head of creative. Squashing RVD, taking on Jericho. That whole roster was, not that Scott Steiner should have won the title at Royal Rumble 2003, but that type of stuff was pissing
and
people
all
off.
of those things, I felt like even built bigger in the minds of fans the whole married to the boss's daughter stigma.
Right.
So I think he's distanced himself from that, and I think the biggest thing that helped him distance himself from that stigma was the NXT brand, and that's when fans really, man, this guy gets it, especially when NXT was bumped up against Vince's, 2015, 2016 WWE. You started to see like, oh, we won. I just remember the cries from the fans, put H in charge, and now he is, and I feel like he's doing a great job. So.
Yeah, you could trace, the early origins of the AEW movement with that NXT movement, but let's move into the live crowd here. Let's start with the 2 Money in the Bank matches. Of course, the Money in the Bank men's match opened the show. Don't want to go spot by spot here. I thought it was a really fun match as far as in-ring action goes, and we had Damian Priest coming out to be the latest to win the Money in the Bank briefcase. A lot of crazy spots. The most notable was the Ricochet and Logan Paul botched Spanish Fly that Ricochet probably saved Logan Paul's life, springboarding themselves on a table.
I can't believe they went through with that after the botch. Like, I thought
it was insane.
I thought they were going to bail on it, and then when they did it, it was like such a last ditch thing. It was a crazy spot. I think the botch even added to it.
So it seemed like everybody was correct. Those that said Logan Paul was in this match as a red herring, and he was just that. Damian Priest came out getting the win. I heard a lot of predictions. Shout out to the Chick Foley show, the Raw Down crew. They were talking about Damian Priest getting the win. I don't see him at that level, but the storyline is there. Obviously, with the dissension between Finn Balor and himself, we saw that play out in the World Heavyweight Championship match with the stare down, and there's potential that they could feud over the World Heavyweight Championship. But that, again, I ask you, if you want this title to feel more than a mid-card title, why would you have Damian Priest involved in it? He just wrestled Seth Rollins on an open challenge on Raw. I think it was set up for LA Knight to win, and I was talking about it last week, not going to go long form on it, but LA Knight not winning is a missed opportunity because I believe the Money in the Bank briefcase is the equivalent to the IC Championship in this day and age. It's pretty much the same. It is kind of giving somebody a ticket saying, we believe in you, we want you to take the next step. And that's not always the same case. There's been people that have won the Money in the Bank briefcase that were never going to be world champion. And you can say the same thing about the IC Championship. There were people that won that championship that, go back to Albert. He won the IC Championship. That doesn't mean he was ever ticketed to become the world champion. But LA Knight's reaction, LA Knight's organic rise to the top of the card, I think waiting too long and this mindset that creative has had in recent years of you like someone that's gotten over organically, let us beat him down so you get this sympathy. I just don't think it works in every situation. People can highlight the Daniel Bryan thing going into WrestleMania 30, but they didn't want that match to happen. Let's not act like that was a master plan on their end. They wanted Dave Bautista versus Randy Orton. That's the match they wanted. They wanted Daniel Bryan versus Triple H, and that's it. Fans had to rally amongst themselves to get Daniel Bryan in that main event. And I think we may see a similar movement with LA Knight. I don't think it's ever going to have the same breadth of impact that eventually Daniel Bryan did. And LA Knight, hopefully the reactions can continue. I just think it was a missed opportunity because him with the briefcase, if it's not going to be Logan Paul on podcasts and media appearances and all that, I want to just shout out to Boney here, and J-Bone in the chat was talking about comparing his rise to Stone Cold. And I had said, and I say it on every podcast, that I think WWE in 2023 would drop the ball with Austin 316 because of the inability to react to things that happen organically. They stay on this road. They refuse to get off. They refuse to exit when something else has happened. They've proven that time and time again. My response to the Austin 316 thing is, again, the IC Championship is the Money in the Bank briefcase, in my opinion. And also, Austin probably would have been coronated way before, but he broke his neck in 97. So he had to wait. So I think, and especially now with the age of LA Knight, he's at an age right now where, what are we going to wait, another 2 years? I'm not saying he has to defeat Roman Reigns. I don't think he's that guy. That story lives in its own place. But There's no reason he can't cash in on Seth Rollins in 2-3 months from now. If you want to create a new star, he's right there in front of you. The fans are reacting across all different arenas. It's not just like London was going crazy for him. He gets an organic reaction despite the booking he's been getting. He just lost to Santos Escobar on SmackDown a few weeks ago.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, it's one of those things when you look at history with like Stone Cold and how he came to be. You know, he starts doing his Iceman killer persona coming out of Ringmaster. He's kind of floating in the background but picking up steam. And he was a heel in the beginning of that, and the whole Triple H curtain call thing probably shoved him up quicker than he was going to be, but because Triple H was kind of pegged to be that year's King of the Ring. But that shows you the difference of WWE then. One, they had competition knocking on their door, and they were I feel like the other company at that time was a lot hotter.
Sure.
But the difference is back then they felt the wave, because as a fan, even at that time, when they were going to coronate Triple H before the curtain call, I would still say the fans, the heat was behind Stone Cold. You could just feel it. Every time the guy was on the screen, you could tell he was kind of putting himself into that Bret Hart situation. There was a lot of interesting shit going on there, and they felt it, and okay, well, you know, curtain call, let's move to Steve. We put him in. Now today you've got LA Knight, who's kind of in that Nation of Domination Rock type of role where he is kind of a heel in a way, but he's the cool heel. He's not the sympathetic white meat baby face. He is the wisecracking heel to me. He's a tweener right now. And I get it. Like the Raw Down guys were saying that the Money in the Bank is a heel gimmick, and I get it. It is. It works so much better on a heel, but it's also a promo gimmick to me. You want to put that. That's how I've always looked at it. Like the best people that have that briefcase are people that can come out and use it to talk a little bit. And even with Lesnar, who's not a promo guy, when he had it, he isn't going to talk on it, but he turns it into a boombox, and it was the most entertaining shit. Brock dancing with this boombox briefcase. Like, you got to be able to do something with it. Damian Priest, I don't see how this adds anything to him. I don't see how he's going to make this interesting and make it work. Full disclosure, I'm not that big on Damian Priest.
Yeah.
But when I looked at that card, it was a two-man race. It was either LA Knight or it was Logan Paul. And when I saw that they put it on Damian Priest, I was just kind of like, okay, this is going to be a device used for Judgment Day cracks, showing cracks in the Judgment Day. You're going to show a divide between Finn Balor and Damian Priest, which they've already kind of started teasing. So instead of them using the briefcase to actually elevate a guy, they're using the briefcase as a plot point in the Judgment Day storyline, which I think, man, it's been a long time since someone's had that briefcase that really meant something, where it truly became a fun, big piece of your Monday or Friday nights. And I was with Anthony. If you listen to the Raw Down when they were arguing about the outcome of this event, and Marco and J-Bone were dead on. They nailed it with their takes on this. As far as like what the company does, they won't put 100%. It on LA Knight. I thought they were nailing it, but the whole time in the discussion, I was like, man, I wish I could jump in and help Anthony, because I'm right there with young Anthony right now. But I don't know, man. I feel like 1996, 1997, Vince McMahon, WWE, they would have strap the rocket to LA Knight. And I get it. It's this Triple H was in the press conference after the event, and he said, good things come to those who wait. But I'm just like, man, when you have something that's ready, when you can really shoot a guy right up to the top, I think you pull the trigger on it, because how is it going to hurt you to have another guy who gets main event level reactions? And I know J-Bone and Marco were kind of saying that he's not on that level yet. Like, he's not, they couldn't see him even on Seth Rollins, obviously Roman Reigns' level. No one's on Roman's level, first of all. I get that. But like, the crowd is telling you that he's ready to be there, though. He may not be there right now, but the crowd reactions that he's getting, if you threw some gasoline on him right now, I feel like he could be rocketed up to that level fairly quickly. The guy, and he's 40. I know 40's the new 30, blah, 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 but dude's been around, man. He's got ring wear. At any point, something could take him out of the game. The older you get, the more prone you are for something to put you down for a year as far as an injury goes. I think they screwed up here. I think LA Knight cutting promos with that briefcase would have been exponentially better than Damian Priest using it as a plot point for the Judgment Day breakup.
Yeah, checks a lot of boxes. I think he's a guy that maybe he'll get his opportunity in the future. And I know that some of the others have said potentially take the IC title off of Gunther. The IC title means a lot more than it did not too long ago. So maybe that's a big moment. But I think this was tailor-made for him. And Damian Priest didn't need it. He was already challenging for the world title. And in the Judgment Day stuff, also, don't break the Judgment Day up. They're doing such good things. Let's not.
I'm with you. Don't break them up. Don't even play with breaking them up.
So we also have the women's Money in the Bank ladder match that went down. And this was a really, really fun match as well. Just as fun as the men's match. I really like the unique finish as well.
Yeah.
Io Sky is now the holder of the women's Money in the Bank briefcase.
Called it.
You called it last week.
Yeah.
Everyone talking about Io Sky being underrated, and the Chick Foley crew was talking about Io Sky, and they're exactly right. Io Sky is someone that doesn't get their deserved flowers, for lack of a better word, but she is someone that I think people are going to take note of throughout the rest of this year. But we talked about the finish. Bayley and Becky were starting to climb the ladder. Io Sky grabbed handcuffs around Lynch after Trish Stratus and Zoe Stark had attempted to handcuff her earlier. Sky handcuffed Bayley and Lynch together, which allowed her to climb and grab the briefcase to win the match. Seen a lot of ladder matches in my time as a wrestling fan. Have never seen something like that. It was cool to see them literally and figuratively handcuffed to watch Io Sky grab what they wanted. The symbolism and imagery of Bayley and Becky Lynch handcuffed together, which their careers have always been linked together in that way. Yep. It was cool to see. And watching Io Sky kind of climb over them, it was symbolism to me. I know I'm probably thinking too much.
No, man, you're right. You're dead on. That's good wrestling.
Yep. So
I'm with you.
I enjoyed the match.
I loved it. And I loved the smart booking of setting up the cuffs. If they would have broken the cuffs out for that spot right there, I don't feel like it would have worked as well. But the fact that earlier, maybe 3 to 5 minutes earlier in the match, you have the spot where they're trying to cuff Becky outside of the ring to the turnbuckle or to the rope, and she kind of fights them off, but she has the cuff around her wrist and it's kind of dangling. Even as a smart fan, and some people may have seen it, but I didn't see the path they were going to. I didn't see like, okay, they put that there to set up this spot. And it was a perfect moment because I feel like a lot of people had Becky winning this, and both performers, Bayley and Becky, did it so well where their hands were through you didn't see them setting this up. I didn't see like, okay, they're putting their arms through the ladder. Here we go. She's got the cuffs. I didn't see it coming. I thought it was a slick booking move. Hats off, because I thought this match rocked, man. I thought it was a fun match.
The other thing, I don't want to get into a longer conversation about it, but what I recognize from this match alone, and this is not even just the full division, but comparing them to AEW's women's division, WWE is by far the best women's division out there. And there's a lot of women out there in Impact. I like their division as well, but WWE, man, you just see the talent they have there and the young talent they continue to showcase and push. It's remarkable to see who they're able to put in that spot, and watching Io Sky get the win. Right decision for someone who is ready to take that next step. And they have veterans, they have future stars, they got people that can work, they got also just the dynamic charisma. That the women's division is in a really good place on the WWE side.
Yeah, and I think it was kind of weak there. Not weak as far as star power, but weak in story. I feel like it went to a point, maybe even like a year ago, where they weren't, the way they had roster split it between SmackDown and Raw. It seemed very, I think SmackDown was real bare bones. They didn't have a lot of people when they started doing all those firings during COVID. But you can see Triple H getting his hands into this, and say what you want, man. You've got the Bailey, EO, that whole faction, Damage Control. You've got that story going on. You've got Becky, Trish, Zoe, that thing going on. You've got a surging new talent in EO. There's a lot of fun things going on, not to mention Charlotte and Bianca and all of that. So you're right, man. They're loaded up. They've always been loaded. It's ever since the NXT. I feel like we have a debate topic coming up where we're going to get into, does NXT build stars and everything? But I think the one thing NXT has done above all else is they've helped the women's division in pro wrestling more than anything. I think if you look at their women's division, it is solely in the spot it's in because of the Performance Center in NXT, because these women are showing out, man.
Absolutely. And we move into the World Heavyweight Championship match. Seth Rollins successfully defended his championship against Finn Balor. Story to me was a backdrop to this Damian Priest winning the briefcase and what's going on with the Judgment Day. Match was pretty non-eventful. Rollins moved from the coup de grace, hit the curb stomp. We had an argument between Finn Balor and the appearing Damian Priest holding the briefcase. But again, this is setting the stage for potentially a feud involving the briefcase, involving the championship somewhere down the line between Finn Balor and Damian Priest. And if Seth's not involved with the title match, if the title comes off Seth and goes on Finn, and Damian and Finn have a feud over the championship, or say Damian cashes in on Rollins and wins the title, a eventual feud between Finn Balor and Damian Priest screams, unfortunately to me and everybody else, a mid-card feud. And that's not how you elevate a championship.
No, if Seth would have dropped this title here, it would have hurt Seth, but it would have hurt that belt even more. And that belt, they have to do a lot to elevate that belt, because it's still got the stigma of, it's the participation trophy belt. And I think Seth's doing a bang up job defending it. I think I saw that he's defended that title more in the last month than Roman's defended his title in the last year, which is a crazy stat. I called this one, man. I thought this match, on paper, it was the match that should have been match of the night. But it was the match that was, to me, it was the match that was going to disappoint, because it had the most heat on it to be that big, just work rate match. And anytime there's a lot of focus on that, I feel like that becomes the match that's most likely to disappoint. I think both guys are great, but I think it just like Priest winning that briefcase, this match kind of became a plot point in the potential breakup of Judgment Day, which is going to be a dumb move. Do not break this team up. They're firing right now. There was a part I heard certain fans saying that, with these two guys, Rollins and Balor, one having indie ROH ties, Balor having New Japan ties, we thought they were going to go out and try and one up or try and match Ospreay Omega. I knew that wasn't going to be the case. Like, I just knew they weren't going to go there, and they didn't. I don't think it even came close. I thought this was the letdown of the night for me, was this match. I thought it was a big letdown match. It was fine, but when you got these two guys in a world championship match, I'm wanting to see a little more than what I got.
They have to be careful with this World Heavyweight Championship, because if you think back to the original run of the one that was rehabilitated, I think probably like 2013, 14, around there, where Jack Swagger was champion. I think it's probably like 2010. Like, Jack Swagger was world champion, and that title was always secondary to the main program. And you fall into a rhythm of, Obviously, Roman Reigns is the big bad. The story with the bloodline is the be-all, end-all for WWE, but the work rate title is layman's terms in Vince's mind for lesser than. So
Oh,
with
100%.
Balor and Seth Rollins going out there and putting on what is considered a good match, the title, like I said, feels secondary. It almost feels at the level of our next match here, the Intercontinental Championship. And maybe the Intercontinental title, you can make the argument, is more valuable than that championship right now. And I think there's a case to be made. And Gunther feels like a bigger deal than both the guys in that match as far as like presentation wise. Rollins obviously ate a lot of losses going 2023. Finn Balor was essentially enhancement talent until Triple H came back into the fold. So Gunther has been booked as strong as anyone can be booked.
When Gunther comes out with the white backdrop and he's standing there, there's a reverence there for him that's bigger than Seth with that title. I know Seth has the crowd interaction with the singing of his song. I hate his song, by the way. Like I spoke about it. I'm not a fan. Seth Rollins is my favorite wrestler in WWE. That being said, I do not like this presentation of him. I think the gimmick is silly. I can't attach to it. But Gunther, on the other hand, dude, he looks like he has elevated the IC belt so much. And you're right. I think for me, just as I'm not, maybe other people feel differently, but that IC belt feels more important than the belt Seth has at this moment. Now, if Seth continues to do what he does, obviously he's going to elevate that belt. It's new, it's fresh. It has the stigma of, this participation trophy. I can't beat Roman Reigns title. But Gunther, man, God, guy is so good. He just has a presence to him that I don't think there's maybe 3 to 5 guys in WWE that has a presence like Gunther. Like Lesnar has a big presence, obviously Roman, but Gunther's like, they have a top heel right there. At any point they could pull the trigger and he could be world champion, big time heel, and he could make a baby face with a world title. Like if you give Gunther a world title, he's one of those guys, he goes on a dominant streak like that. And then somebody that's a heel that you could build up to the point where whoever beats him for a world title is made instantly. Like Gunther is that good to me. I don't think people give him enough credit. And people give him a ton of credit, but I still don't think they give him enough credit. I think he's one of the top 5 best in the world right now, what he does.
He took the carcass of the IC title and reinvented it to a point where it's meaningful again. But yeah, he defended against Matt Riddle. And again, another match here that was secondary. Good match between two guys.
How far has Riddle fell?
Yeah, I felt the same way too. He felt like we talked about this where he wrestled Roman on SmackDown or almost a year ago at this point. People were talking about Riddle winning the championship because of the
people were saying he was going to win the Rumble at one point, and now this guy just feels like an afterthought. Like if you remember, Ace, I don't know if you were on the debate, but there was a debate we had where it's like, is he a potential world champion, like a face of the company? Can Riddle be that? And my whole point, his outside the ring stuff, he's got too many red flags in his personal life for this company to put him as the face of their company. And at one point, I feel like his popularity was such where just based off of riding the wave of fan reaction, he could have been the face. But I just feel like he is so unhinged and makes such dumb choices in his personal life. He will never sniff a world title in this company. I really don't think he will.
Yeah, self-imposed destruction, and probably, see him kind of in this area right now, but he was a piece of storytelling mechanism for the Gunther stuff. And we have the returning Drew McIntyre for the bigger program. This is Drew McIntyre's first appearance since WrestleMania 39, where he lost a 3-way match, one of the best matches of the 2 nights of WrestleMania against Gunther and Sheamus. Seems like we're going to be getting Gunther, Drew McIntyre for the IC title at SummerSlam, I would say. And we were talking about the IC championship being this championship that means a lot. I asked you, Chad, and I know this is a longer conversation that probably warrants it, but do you feel like it's a waste of that rub to give it to Drew McIntyre, who's already established? If Drew was to beat Gunther at SummerSlam in Detroit, do you feel like it's a waste, or do you think it's okay that, all right, Gunther did what he did to the IC title and Drew takes I has a nice moment in front of fans.
Man, this is tough because in one way it could be a waste, in another it depends on where it goes after that. I think if it was me, you would probably want I don't think Drew needs it. You know what I mean? Like him beating Gunther, put someone in a spot to beat Gunther that's like, damn, they're here, new IC champ. But at the same time, if Gunther is going to drop this title to Drew and it sends Gunther into, say, a program against Seth Rollins where Gunther possibly beats Rollins, and then we attach that legendary, legendary. I mean, he's got the streak now. He beat Honky Tonk Man. If you put that streak, that IC streak that Gunther had, and you put it on this new title, him beating a fan favorite in Rollins, and build that up, and then maybe get a Cody versus Gunther or something like that. Like if they're taking this IC belt off of Gunther to transition him into a major heel in the world heavyweight division, maybe it's the right move. But I there's a big part of me. It's like Drew getting this belt off of Gunther. It feels like a step back to me.
Yeah, and with Drew, the conversation's out there. We thought he might have been potentially leaving. There were the murmurs in the news cycles that he won't be in WWE, but those rumors have been completely debunked. He's going to be
Triple
here.
H,
I think he made
Triple
the
H
decision.
even said like that in the press conference. He was like, no, he was just rehabbing some injuries and there was no issues.
So Drew will be back in the fold. It's nice to have him back. He's a great piece to the roster, but we also have other matches to cover before we get to the main event here. Of course, we had Cody Rhodes defeating Dominic Mysterio, hit him with the Cody Cutter to Crossroads for a decisive win. We talked about this on Wrestling Tonight last week. It's the move. You got to keep Cody Rhodes strong and busy. Those are two things that he needs to do up until WrestleMania 40. And Dominic has a lot of heat on him. It doesn't matter if he wins or loses at this point. Dom just gets out stronger and he winds up getting more heat every time he's out there. So great decision. I never thought it was ever in the cards for Dom to win this match. It was always Cody winning to me.
Yeah, the only way I saw it possibly happening was if Brock came in and cost Cody the match to push into their SummerSlam match, but this was the right move. Honestly, kind of like I expected more out of this match as far as just from a fun angle. I didn't think it was going to be this barn burner match.
Felt like a Raw match,
but
sure.
It felt like a kind of a buffer match on the card. Like one of my least favorite on the card was this match. It just didn't do a lot for me.
So we also have the Women's Tag Team Championships on the line. Story here is mostly that Shayna Baszler turned on Ronda Rousey. So we have new tag team champions, Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez. They had to drop the championships because of injury a little while ago, about a month and a half ago at this point. So the titles are back to where they were originally. Not sure why Ronda and Baszler are split up now, because I kind of like the cohesion with the team. They felt like they made sense. It was giving Ronda purpose. But yeah, Rodriguez hit the Tejana Bomb and Morgan hit Oblivion. Morgan pinned Rousey to win the titles. Dissension between them. But yeah, it just, you have a women's tag division that was growing, and you took one of their, one of the teams that actually felt like they were getting some momentum behind them, and you split them up, but they have nothing better to do. Neither one of these women are going to win the titles in the singles division. What was the point of splitting them?
This is a bonehead move. This is a big bonehead move. I mean, maybe the only person that could maybe benefit from this is Shayna, because I feel like Shayna, ever since she came up from NXT, has been treated like a jabroni. I mean, she had that vampire gimmick where she was biting people and shit when she first came into the main roster. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Raquel, I think everyone was expecting Raquel to turn heel and turn on Liv, but they went the other way. This is why this division's garbage. Like this title, I mean, not the division, not the women's division, the title, it's just garbage. It flip-flops. You can't get any steam behind it because you're constantly rotating it. You've got two who I think are big singles competitors in Liv and Raquel now holding these belts. Dude, get rid of these titles and give a mid-card IC type title to the women's division. I'm just not in on this. Didn't like it. Worse. The angle was fine, whatever, turning on Shayna and Ronda, but I don't know. Whatever.
So what we're all waiting for is the main event. The Usos versus Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa, the Bloodline Civil War. And this could have been our lead story. We didn't even have to talk about everything else. The main story here, for the first time in nearly 4 years, Roman Reigns has eaten a pinfall. So last time, you guys remember, we talked about here on the show, last time he was pinned was against Baron Corbin at TLC 2019. So it's been a while since he's been on the mat for a 3 count. The other great imagery we had here, and a lot of people were sharing it, was the first time Roman was pinned on the main roster was from the Usos as well. Jay had pinned him in the same exact way with the corner splash. Everything looks exactly the same. They pull, you know that they're very much aware of the lineage and history of every competitor in that match. Very well done. Crowd took it to the next level. We talked about the sing-songy chants, the everything, the environment created, and Roman Reigns and the Usos and Solo, even at such a novice level at this level, everyone was playing their role masterfully. Paul Heyman at ringside. This was another great feather in the cap of the Bloodline storytelling. And now the plot thickens. Like, is Jay the guy who takes the title off him at SummerSlam? I don't think that's the case. I think this is another bump in the road, but I think that's what we're going to get. We're going to get Jay versus Roman at SummerSlam for the championship. And a lot of people are going to sign up saying they think Jay's going to win, but I still think it's Cody at WrestleMania 40. I still continue to move that goalpost.
I'm with you. I don't think Jay wins. I think this is the match to make, Jay versus Roman at SummerSlam. I think it's beautiful that there will be so many people thinking that Jay is going to be the guy to take it off of him. I think Roman losing this belt anywhere other than WrestleMania 40 is a massive mistake. I think it has to be WrestleMania 40. I don't know who it's going to be. I was on the Cody train, and I still am, but there's doubt creeping up in my head. Like, there's doubt of they could screw this guy. Like, I could see Seth Rollins getting into that spot. I could see Seth somehow working his way into beating Roman. I mean, there's story there. I think there is a story to be told of Jay beating Roman. And it's very, very possible. Maybe that's WrestleMania 40. I don't know, man. I just don't see Roman losing this belt anywhere other than a WrestleMania. It feels like it would be a moment like that after a run that he's had. If he drops the belt any other place other than the biggest show you have, it feels like a mistake to me. So I do think hearing the interviews with the Usos and all of this, there is a part of me that thinks Roman, he has the stroke. He's the top guy. If Roman pushes this agenda of, I think this story is built for the only person that can take me down as someone within my family. And I think that's possible. If they push for that story, I think the front office is going to listen to their guy. But there's also a part of me, the Usos gave that interview with Ariel Helwani where they talked about their dream match being Jay versus Jimmy. Them facing each other at a WrestleMania is their dream. That's the match I called for at this past WrestleMania. Instead of that tag team match, I wanted them to split up and face each other. So maybe, we have this Jay match at SummerSlam. Something happens along the way to Mania 40 that sets that matchup between the Usos, and then we get Roman versus, Cody or Seth or whoever they choose to put in there. But I don't see Jay beating Roman for that title, especially at SummerSlam.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't see him beating him for the title at all. And I think part of this is it's not even about the title for Jay or Jimmy. It's about securing the bloodline and his family and making people believe they are good people. So I think that's the goal here.
Yeah.
And I think Jay beating him in this way, I don't think it's the last of what we're going to see them together. Obviously, that's going to continue. We're going to get them one-on-one, but I don't think he's going to be the guy to win the championship because it's beyond that for the Usos. They don't need the championship involved, and them helping be a part of taking down Roman's empire, for lack of a better word, going into,
right,
like you said, WrestleMania 40. That's a little bit more damning, and they can help coronate another guy. Maybe somewhere down the line, Jey Uso is the leader of the bloodline, can be a main eventer. I just don't see it being needed to be a championship, because if he takes him down, it's just part of, that's bigger than the title at all, because you're taking down the full infrastructure of the bloodline, not just this one piece that holds it together.
That's what I was going to ask you is, there are fans out there that think it's the no-brainer. That is the story. You know, like if you go to the beginning of the bloodline and the Jay situation, and I see their point that is the thread of Jay getting that title. So there's that kind of narrative out there being pushed that makes the most sense from a story perspective is, you know, the full circle of Jay getting that belt back. So take that point of view and then, put it up to what do you gain overall? I'm not talking about the story. What do you gain from a company perspective by having Jey Uso beat Roman Reigns for the title? Like what is there? That's where it loses me. Like from a straight, if you're talking the isolated bloodline story, I see your point that there is a thread there that makes sense. A full circle thread of Jay from the beginning being the guy. But just from a company standpoint, you've got this almost 4-year run from Roman, and you put it on a guy who for the entirety of his career has been a tag team act. And I get there's more weight to him, but I just feel like that would be a bad business move. As much as fans love the Usos and they're beloved, they're arguably the greatest tag team in WWE history. I mean, you can dispute that, but the argument is there. I feel like it just feels like a Big E moment. I feel like fans wouldn't get behind Jey Uso as a main event champion like we think they would. I think that reign would fizzle. I think it would be looked at as a transitional champion moment. I don't think he elevates himself to, oh man, now we're going to get Jey Uso versus Seth Rollins, Jey Uso versus Gunther. I just don't see that in my head. What do you think, Ace? Do you think it's one of those things where it fits the story, so you move with that? Or do you think from a company perspective, do you think fans would really, as much as they love them, do you think they would really buy into Jey Uso being the face of this company?
I think the WWE machine is capable of anything they want. But that being said, I think you're right. You're onto something, because in the vacuum of the bloodline story, it makes the most sense. It has cohesion to how it started, and that's how it should end. But I'm thinking about after the bloodline story is over and Roman's taking a break, when you put on a pay-per-view headline saying it's going to be Jey Uso versus Damian Priest, or Jey Uso versus
feels mid-card.
Right. So, and again, they have some time between now and then to figure out a way to make Jey Uso feel bigger. In the bloodline storyline, yes, it would make everyone feel good. It would create a magical moment. But again, you can have that magical moment. We had it, point in case right here. Title wasn't on the line.
Right.
Tag match. He pinned Roman. That's a big deal. No one's pinned him since 2019. That's something they gave to Jey Uso right here. And he doesn't need the title. I really don't think he needs a title to tell the story. And who needs a title is Cody Rhodes. Like, we need to finish that story. So,
well, what the Usos are doing better than anything right now is, and this is the thing I have to commend WWE for, is like they have managed to consistently keep Roman as a heel. And I know certain fans love him and still cheer him, but he still feels like a bad guy. And the main story device to me that Jay is in this story, he is the guy who is making us still hate Roman. Because it's very tricky when you have a guy that popular to keep him hated. I mean, it's hard, man. Look at The Rock. When The Rock was trying to get hate, he started getting cheers because people just like dominance. And Roman is as dominant as it gets. You're wanting to cheer for this guy. But the fact that he's shitting down the throats of his family, like Jay and Jimmy, and the way he treats them, that's what keeps him in that spot. That's the importance of Jay and Jimmy. Jay especially in this storyline to me is like, we want to love those guys, and they keep us hating Roman, which is going to be good when we go into a major WrestleMania program with Roman still being hated. That's been the genius of this entire storyline. Everyone wants to talk about everyone's facial expressions, how everyone's acting, and I agree. everyone from an acting perspective, you hear people say, give them Emmys. I completely agree. They're all crushing it. But the fact that they've managed to make Roman a bad guy for as long as they have, and yeah, he's the cool bad guy. Roman's cool. Everyone puts their, you put your hands up, acknowledge the tribal chief, all of that good stuff. But he's still like the chants, like you said, the sing-songy chants of London really showed that, of how fans are buying, even though they like him, they're buying into, hey, he's the bad guy. Let's boo him. We're not supposed to like him, so let's get in on it. Let's be a part of the show. And that's the genius of this entire storyline, is how they've handled the perception of Roman Reigns with the fan base.
Yeah, and I think if you, again, as we're talking about this and airing it out, I think making the title get involved in something like this and having that be the end of the story oversimplifies it, because I think family is the overall thing. And then Chris Hero had posted this. Well, someone made it a picture of the 4 different styles of wrestling: the Japanese style, the American style, Lucha Libre, and I think it was the British Strong style, and telling, like, just in key words, describe them. And the American style of wrestling was morality play. And that's exactly what this is. It's good versus evil. And championships don't play a part in things like this. This is all about wrestling your cousin and your brother's involved, and your family's reputation of they've been this great family. I think the only way this story has to end is you want this family to be viewed in a better light. And that's what Jey Uso is going to bring for this family. And it has nothing to do with the championship. That's a piece. You pull it off Roman, and then Jey Uso still stands on top as the new head of the table. That means more than being the champion. And that says a lot about the story, but also that's the story that needs to be told. And then we can have the family kind of all come in. You can get all these other faces that haven't been involved. We can talk about Rikishi and have this nice moment at the end, season finale, where everybody's hugging.
Absolutely.
And maybe we restart it down the line. Roman comes back like, Super Shredder and Secret Views, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, from the wreckage, he comes back. But until then, we get a nice ending where everyone's, dancing, singing, hugging, and saying goodbye.
No, I mean, the Chris Hero, the morality play thing is so true, because at the core of this story is at the core of storytelling in general. At the primal base root of storytelling, all the way back to cavemen sitting around a fire telling stories. It's the Joseph Campbell book, Hero of a Thousand Faces. Every story you've ever watched or read or listened to, whether it's on a TV show, a movie, a podcast, whatever it is, it's all based around that Hero of a Thousand Faces novel. They break it down. It's all very, very basic, primal storytelling. That's what this story is in a nutshell. I mean, it's white and black, good versus evil, dark and light. It's expertly done. It's so simple to do. And they're knocking it out of, I shouldn't say it's so simple to do, but it's a very simple foundation for storytelling. And Star Wars is built on, everything is built on this. The hero's journey, they call it. And that's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing with this, and they're crushing it.
So let's get to big story number 2, where we talk about someone who could be involved in the Bloodline storyline, but this is something that gets people in thinking that maybe he won't be. It's big story.
Big story 2.
All right, so we have JACOB FATU in the news here, but not in a good way. He's accused of taking money and ghosting a nonprofit organization. So NBC 26 from Wisconsin was recently speaking with Jake's network of Hope Director of Development, Jen Harper, who claims the Major League Wrestling star JACOB FATU no-showed its Hits for Hope fundraising event, and Jake's provides toys and hygiene products, among other items, for a variety of organizations. So they go into detail saying he was booked for the event, but called and said there was a family emergency preventing him from appearing. Jen had said, we gave him the benefit of the doubt. At Jake's, we are 100% about family. And I said, if you can't make it, that's fine. Harper said that she's asked to be reimbursed for the total amount of booking him. And then since then, JACOB FATU has ghosted the organization. And the other thing she brought up was like, I was going to leave this quiet. It's maybe a separate situation. But then talking to people involved that have booked him in the past, she had said, she heard that this had happened before. So not a good look for JACOB FATU. Maybe he'll make the right decision, and maybe it's just all a misconception, and they'll clear it up. But not looking good for JACOB FATU when you're going away, and especially where we see the amount of money that's being out there, the appearance fee, and then paying for flight and hotel. And for anyone that's worked an independent show, those things are expensive, and they're running a tight ship. There's not a lot of excess money. So especially an organization that's doing a lot for the community, they don't have a lot of money to throw around and lose. So that money could have been used elsewhere. So I'm really hoping this isn't true. It's a bad, indictment on his character if that's the case.
Yeah, things like this hurt you. When other companies are the companies above MLW are looking at you. Maybe you don't want a guy who's going to have a black mark like this. This is some pretty scumbag activity, in my opinion. Ghosting a nonprofit who is providing toys and hygiene products for the underprivileged and the lower class poor community. I mean that's shitbag stuff, man. Not all of this is speculation, I guess, but it's coming from them. Why would they bring it up? I know, she said that she was going to stay quiet on it and just deal with it. And then she started hearing from other wrestling organizations and things that he's worked with that it's happened before. This is a pattern of behavior. And I will say early on in the Tavern days, when we were doing a lot of indie wrestling interviews, when you very first start, carnies are going to carny. They'll charge you, they'll $25 here for an interview, whatever. And we were in discussion with JACOB FATU, and it was like $100 for an interview. And speaking with other people warned us, don't. He stuck us, like, and it happened to us with someone else before, so I was leery of that. And someone said, yeah, he stuck us we paid, and we never heard anything from him. So that's just from a little tiny podcast, that trying to get their feet under them. So when you're dealing with a company trying to improve the community, and like you said, $2,600 to a major company is a drop in the bucket. It's nothing. But when you're dealing with a nonprofit organization, that's a lot of money, man. On a local level to a small town in Wisconsin, like that's a lot of money. Not a good look. Calls into question character. To me, it's not even about the money. It's all about the judgment of character. Seeing someone who would do that. And this isn't like he stiffed a promoter. Not saying that's good either. But, it's not like he's doing it to maybe some jabroni that has screwed over people in the past. This is a nonprofit doing good charity work for a community, and you take money from them and ghost them. That is, to me, that's as bad a look as it gets when you're an independent wrestling star trying to make your way, And this isn't just a random guy. This is a guy tied into arguably, as of right now in the wrestling scene, the most important wrestling family in pro wrestling. Like,
right.
You could say the Harts and the Von Erichs, but as far as wrestling today, the Anoa'i family is by far the most recognizable, impactful pro wrestling family on the planet. You're tied into that, and you're doing things like this. It's not a good look.
Yeah, and I think he has to ask himself if all these accusations are true. Is just about $2,700, $2,600 worth the damage of reputation, because it's going to cost more for you to rehabilitate it? So I'm hoping they can clear up this misconception at the very least. This not-for-profit that is doing good work in Wisconsin, Jake's Network of Hope, can get their money back and do good with it, because as they said, they're providing toys, hygiene products, and other its for a variety of organizations in the area for those that are in need, whether it be food insecurity or other things. It's a shame to hear this happen. Like you said, I think you said so beautifully there that it's not even just about promoter independent show being stiff, because that's bad enough. That's bad for reputation in the community. But to do this with no second thought, I would hope that there's a lot to be said. He's going to come out and make clear that this is all a giant mix-up. But the fact that, Harper had come out and said that a major name from Fatu's family said that they would replace him on the show, which means that they know that they did wrong, or he knows he did wrong, and they're trying to make it better. But that's not going to be enough, because now he has a lot to be said, because this is out in the media, and people, when they Google JACOB FATU right now, it's not about what he's doing in MLW, not his independent dates, not working House to Glory. It's this stuff. And this is not what you want out there when you're trying to be big, signed to a big company like WWE.
No, yeah, with the family wanting to step in and be like, "Hey, we'll replace him to try and right the wrong." Like they're like, "Okay, we got to save face." I feel like that family has been pretty stand up in the past. They're very respected. And NBC 26 from Wisconsin even reached out to Fatu. No comment on the situation. If I was him, I'd be paying the money and trying to get that respect back, because for me, like we've talked about on this show, and back when we were doing the GCW show, I'm a massive JACOB Fatu fan. Like I love JACOB Fatu as a wrestler, dude. If they brought him into the bloodline, it would be incredible. He has an intensity, like right now, I don't know. He makes Solo Sikoa look like a white bread cookie cutter to me.
Right.
JACOB Fatu is the real deal. But when things like this happen, it does your fandom. It kind of takes a hit on a guy, and I hope it just doesn't sour his reputation. I hope he rights this wrong.
Yeah, and that being said, I don't think this is this is something that will stop him from being signed, because we've seen wrestlers and
100%.
People get past things like this, even if they don't make it right. We've seen Logan Paul on a huge stage just this day. We just saw it come out again about him ripping people off of whatever Bitcoin or whatever the hell they're doing with cryptocurrency. So it doesn't matter as long as you're selling tickets. But as far as being a human being at the human level with
that's it.
What that organization was doing, do you really want to be doing business with someone like that? At the end of the day, if he did it to them, what is he going to do to you? So
that bad people do bad shit all the time, get away with it. They're still given chances. They're still given opportunities, especially in the world of entertainment and sports. If you're good at what you do, people will look the other way with things like this, but still, it still doesn't make it right. And it's up to people that kind of cover and talk about those industries to take those people to task, because I don't care how good you are. If you're doing things like this, like you said, it's a human thing, man. And we've seen, like you said, with Logan Paul and tons of other people in this business, if you're good at what you do, they don't care. They'll sign you and they'll try and make it work. But I don't know, man. I do think it hurts his reputation a little bit, but at the same time, like you said, something like this, they'll be like, well, if he's under our watch, he won't do that. We'll make sure of it. So
we'll keep you guys updated on the story as it continues to go on in our quick hitter section. And again, we're not passing judgment on him yet. We're just reporting the news here and saying what went on. And maybe JACOB FATU has a great explanation for this, but he has a lot of, as Ricky Ricardo would say, has a lot of splaining to do. But
big fan of the guy, just not a big fan of this news of him.
But let's get to big story number 3.
Big story 3.
So we got some unfortunate news on Friday that Darren Drozdov has passed away at the age of 54. We saw a tribute graphic to start the show in SmackDown, which was taking place in the UK. We had a quote from his family. "We are sad to share that our beloved Darren passed away this morning of natural causes. There are no words to convey the deep sense of loss and sadness we are feeling right now." We know Darren Drozdov as Droz, Puke throughout WWF. We were just covering him extensively on the Shot Nostalgia Season 3, talking about his rise through and kind of his LOD run, which is not as memorable as people remember him for. But a lot of people kind of can commend his courageousness that happened throughout history based on how he lived his life after a tragic accident in the ring. 24 years ago, he was bound to a wheelchair after being paralyzed in a match right in my stomping grounds, Nassau Coliseum, 1999 of October, was paralyzed with, normal power bomb. They've done the move a lot of times, and whatever reason, he was hurt badly that night. And we've seen reconciliation between Droz and D'Lo Brown. And what people should remember about Droz is his ability to forgive and be the bigger person. And we've seen a lot of wrestlers in the wrestling business hold grudges over lesser things than this.
Yeah.
Drozdov's promising career was cut short. And also, he was bound to a wheelchair for the rest of his life and held no ill will, publicly at least, for D'Lo Brown, who feels awful about what happened.
Yeah.
And they were even interconnected. We've seen interviews in 2014. Droz did an interview with Jim Ross saying he has no hard feelings for D'Lo because shit happens. This isn't ballet. It was an accident. But we didn't even talk about Droz coming up through wrestling. He was a guy with a football background. That usually kind of is an indicator that there's someone they really get behind. Natural athlete, booked kind of poorly. I mean, we talk about 98, the LOD stuff with all that, but I think he probably had longevity for the roster if he would have stayed and continued to be active, because he was a guy who was kind of getting his legs under him in ring wise. He was from that class, like the Val Venus and what they're doing with the Dory Funk stuff. Droz had some promise, and the in-ring stuff is secondary. The human stuff comes first, but how he lived his life in a wheelchair is admirable, because a lot of people would be bitter, and he was nothing but a ray of sunshine for everyone that came in his life.
Yeah. And he had a right to be bitter. You know what I mean? Like, I would have understood, but it takes a bigger man, to respond the way he did. And, this has to torture D'Lo. Ever since this, like, the fact that you knew a mistake, it's something you live with. And I feel like Droz always made a point to try and take some of that guilt away from D'Lo. He was that kind of guy. Like he said, no hard feelings, shit happens. Everyone that gets in athletics, it's the same, this could happen in football, get hit the wrong way. Like, and I think he just had a very, very positive way of looking at the business. And I know they interviewed him for, I forget which episode it was on, but Dark Side of the Ring. Droz was.
That was the Brawl for All episode.
Yeah. And great. Just his takes and everything like that. Like, I was always a fan of Droz. At the time, in 99, I was 15, 16 years old. So I always a fan of him, but and liked his work. I wasn't big on the LOD stuff, but like we said, dude was a cool dude. But the thing I always remember, and I think a lot of people do, it's that Beyond the Mat where we see him having that meeting with Vince McMahon.
Yep.
And Vince is giving him the puke gimmick, and because Droz could supposedly puke on cue, and Vince is breaking down and hyping him up. Oh, maybe you puke on the ref. And then the very legendary, he's got a puke. Everyone remembers that. And how Droz in that moment, he's being pitched this, essentially he's signing a contract to live his dream. And he's just smiling ear to ear as Vince is doing his Vince shtick. RIP to Droz, man. It's a bummer when we lose people like this, especially 54, very young.
Yeah.
Natural causes, bound to the wheelchair. Man, it sucks. It sucks to lose some of our favorites.
Absolutely. And the thing is that I take away from this, it's easy to live your life in a positive way when everything is going your way. But Droz is an example of when you face adversity, and there's not more people that could say they face more adversity than Darren Drozdov. He faced it with light, compassion, was someone people gravitated towards. And from everyone involved, you see this full statement from his family talking about how, he was very family oriented and that he had every right to be sort of sad and upset. And I'm sure in quiet moments he was, but he did his best to make everyone around him better. And that's the best part about this. He'll be remembered for things like this. And yeah, it's very, very inspirational that someone like this could have this type of hand dealt, for lack of a better term, of the cards on the table. And he was able to look past it to be a better person than a lot of people around him. So
yeah,
we lost a good one in the wrestling world and the world at large. This guy was someone who should be celebrated for the things he did outside of the ring as well.
Absolutely. And just a piece, the full statement from the Drozdov family, there was a little slice in there that I really liked, and it said his own words sum up his relentless positivity in the midst of adversity. And he was quoted as saying, "There is always another day. Just because I'm paralyzed and stuck in a wheelchair doesn't mean my life is over. I've learned to live again, and my life is far from over." That's awesome.
Yeah.
That just shows you what kind of guy he was, man. A lot of people would fold under that, and he didn't.
Mindset's everything, dude. Like I say this all the time. It's mindset and how you think about things. Things are going to happen. Life is going to happen, and there's going to be things that get thrown your way, big and small, on a daily basis. It's a matter how you decide to look at them and handle them. That's in your control. So you can let people ruin your day, and this on obviously a smaller scale than the tragic accident that happened for him. But take a piece of that and bring it into your everyday life. Every day is truly something we should cherish, because you don't know when it could end and go in a different direction for everybody. So enjoy the people around you, enjoy your life, and enjoy the things we love to do and talk about.
Absolutely. If a man can get through adversity like this, and you can take a small piece of that mindset and apply it to the everyday trivial things you get upset by, everyone would be a better person for it.
100%. With that being said, let's get to the quick hitters and talk about all the other news in professional wrestling. Quick hitters. All right, our quick hitters section. We start with the announcement of AEW Grand Slam returning to Arthur Ashe in Queens, New York on Wednesday, September 20th. We knew this was happening. It's become a flagpole event here in the New York area. They released details with a tweet. The news was broken by Andrew Zarian of Wrestling Observer. And this will be, believe it or not, dude, it's insane to think about. This will be the third iteration of Grand Slam. To think about that kind of blew me away a bit. Been at the first two. I plan on going to the third one, and goddamn, see if they can get past that $96,000 gate from the first show. And we had 14,000 in attendance last time. Maybe they can top the 20,000 that we had the first time. But it is, an event I look forward to every year. As far as non-pay-per-view events, there's nothing bigger to me.
It feels like they just went there for the first time to me. Time flies. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the first Grand Slam was their first foray into New York City.
It was, yep.
Yeah, like it was their big, like, we're here. We're not doing MSG, but this is going to be our home base. And I love that they've kept this up. I love the setup of Arthur Ashe. It just looks cool on TV. It's a different arena that we haven't really seen before. I like that they're calling it home. I always get pumped for this show. New York crowds always show up and show out. When me and Sneed lived there, we went to many a Raw at the Garden, and I was always, being from West Virginia, we're in Jim Crockett territory. So to go up to MSG and get to see some 2004, 2005, 2006 Monday Night Raws while we lived there, it was another world, man, of fandom. Every place has their pockets of fandom and how they react. But the one thing I remember, crowds are hot in the South too. Jim Crockett had good crowds, but the thing that really opened me up, fish out of water, West Virginia kid living in New York City, being around those wrestling fans it was my first foray into the smart wrestling fans, the fans that were tapped into everything, where in the South, there wasn't that type of tapped in fan. You loved wrestling, you showed up for it, you knew the ins and outs a little bit, but New York, that fan base, man, they're tapped in a different way. And I love Grand Slam. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, and as AEW continues to grow, their history starts to grow, and that's the best thing about this with Grand Slam 3. Everyone has this circled on their calendar. We're going to be building towards it. We're going to reference the first and second one. First one being Danielson Omega, and the second one being, big moments they had there. Jericho winning the ROH title, all that stuff that went on in Grand Slam. And it's a nice thing to have on your calendar to look forward to. That's the best part about these pay-per-views that are predictable. People can get used to the cycle. Every September, Grand Slam's coming to Queens, and it's something that people can look forward to. And I'm very much excited for this. And, I don't care what the card is. I'm showing up, and I'm going to be very pumped about it with a group of people. It's going to be awesome to see.
Hell yeah.
So we also have more updates on Bryan Danielson's broken arm. Brie Garcia, his wife, said the injury is worse than they originally thought. So she said in an Instagram story, not sure whether to be proud or chastise him for wrestling 10 more minutes with this break. Definitely worse than we thought. So we see it on those watching on video. You guys can see the break there. Clean break.
Clean break, man.
A lot of people say, though, clean breaks are better than the ones that get convoluted because this will heal just very nicely and probably quicker than if it was a little bit more damaging with the ligament damage
like
around
tendons,
it.
when you get tearing up,
it
takes more recovery time, but clean breaks usually do heal better. I don't know if they're going to heal quicker. Like the only thing that bums me out about this, obviously, it goes without saying, Bryan Danielson is a tough son of a bitch. He's as tough as they come in wrestling, but man, so close to all in and all out. And that timetable is so close, 6 to 8 weeks. If that's still the case, he just threw that out at the press conference. It could be longer. We have no idea. Man, I hope he can make, it would be such a bummer to have All In, biggest stadium show. The guy got screwed out of the first Forbidden Door because of an injury. Now he could miss the biggest the only stadium event they've ever done. Man, I hope he can make it back in time.
I don't see 6 to 8 weeks happening, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed. And if anyone can do it, it's him. He's Superman, but he'll be involved in some of the build. I mean, with the BCC, he'll be at commentary, so he'll get to experience in that way, but nothing better than him being in the ring because, as we know, he's one of the best to ever do it.
Unless he pulls a Britt Baker and puts a cast on his arm and somehow gets involved.
He'll do it, but we'll see if he's there. But, best wishes to Bryan Danielson, and thank you for everything you do, man.
Absolutely.
We have the other stuff going on for Impact, and we'll cover this extensively on Thursdays at 10:10. Again, thank you for the support for watching Brace for Impact with myself and Colton every Thursday night. We had 2 nights or mornings here on the East Coast of Impact Wrestling. Most of it will be on the first night. Fun cards, but I just want to highlight the main events. Impact World Champion Alex Shelley defeated Steve Macklin to retain his championship in just over 20 minutes. For the show, not really newsworthy. It was one of those warm-ups, how show feels that it's going to be going down at the next pay-per-view of Slammiversary. Everybody was working hard. The local crowd, not a huge crowd in Australia, but those that were there were reacting to everything. All the matches involving championships were very, very good and worthy of a championship bout. Main event to me felt like an old school, title match from back in the 80s. You're referencing Jim Crockett. That's what it felt like, especially with the intimate setting. Macklin is a guy that they've built up really well. This was his contractually obligated rematch. Alex Shelley finally got a very good win. And I mean, at this point, we're building towards something bigger in Impact outside of the Macklin Shelley feud, but it was nice to put a bow on that for the first night.
Yeah, I know you guys had said there was listening to Brace for Impact Thursdays at 10:30. But I listened to the audio on Friday morning at work, and I know you guys were saying there's a possibility that they could pull the trigger on something big, a title change, which you never know. I didn't think they would go that route just because we're building towards Slammiversary, but this was a good way for them to kind of just get their brand out there, go to Australia, get the fans involved. I think stuff like this, even if the turnout isn't as big as you would like, it's almost like you have to eat it. I don't know how big of a success this was from a business perspective, but sometimes you got to eat it a little bit to spread the word and get yourself out there, because people forget, man, back in the TNA days around 2010, 2011, 2012, in that range, Impact was crushing it in the UK. Their shows in America was so thin, and they would go do a tour in UK for like Impact tapings, and it would be balls out, packed. And I think they know their history, how those fans will show out. I think this was a good move, regardless of how the turnout and all of that. Like you said, the fans that did come, they were into it.
So for the second night, they concluded with main event of the Impact's championship on the line. Deonna Purrazzo taking on Giselle Shaw. And this is the match that we kind of highlighted because they've been putting contingency plans with the even match graphics, which was a lot of fun, that if Giselle Shaw was to win the championship, it would be a 3-way match at Slammiversary with Trinity as well. And again, this was another fun showing for Impact. We had the modern style, old school wrestling. And as far as the card altogether, it was a fun watch, worth the 2 hours of wrestling that you want to watch. And I very much enjoyed it. It doesn't have that much stake as far as canon or kayfabe goes. You could probably skip this show. They'll probably show highlights it on Impact on Thursday for the build towards Slammiversary. But like you said, the benefit is outside of just storyline. It's for getting people exposed. The Australia debut. Yep. It's a big deal to have them check that box. And, Slammiversary is really taking shape. And in the week ahead, we'll talk about it. But make sure you guys tune in on Thursdays to hear us talk all things Impact. It's been a lot of fun, really in-depth conversation with Colton. And, man, really diving deep in the product. It makes you understand how great they are actually doing.
Oh, yeah. Definitely check out Brace for Impact. You guys have, when I don't get to watch the weekly show, you guys keep me updated on everything. And don't forget about that third brand. I feel like that's the 3 brands in America: WWE, AEW, Impact. You got to give love to them.
So we also have a returning wrestler to the fold here. Former New Japan Pro Wrestling star Kota Ibushi is set to wrestle his first match in Japan in nearly 2 years. So there's been rumors about Kota being involved in this AEW landscape. Maybe he will down the line, but for now, he's making his return to Japan at a promotion called GLEAT. And their second anniversary show on Saturday, a video aired showing that Ibushi will be coming to the promotion at their Vera Mega show on Friday, August 4th. The show is being held at the Sumo Hall in Tokyo, and this will be Ibushi's debut in the promotion. We don't know his opponent, but the last match he's had in Japan, believe it or not, was 2021, the G-Max Climax, where Ibushi suffered the shoulder injury against Okada. We know the story. He departed New Japan when his contract expired. There's been back and forth. A lot of drama with his family in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and we saw him return to the ring during the GCW Collective during WrestleMania weekend. He wrestled Mike Bailey. He also wrestled Joey Janela. I would love to see him in AEW. There's a lot of story to be told with Kenny Omega, and I think Tony Khan understands that. To continue telling this elite story, I think Kota Ibushi kind of has to be a part of that, and I would love to see a Golden Lovers run on the tag division even, because I think it adds another layer to Kenny. It's a big part of his legacy, this Kota Ibushi stuff, that I think the American audience needs to be exposed to.
Yeah, I want to see Kota in AEW. Golden Lover, I would like to see a little run, maybe, but I'm still dying for Kenny just taking up that New Japan epic top guy mantle in AEW. I mean, he held the title with the Belt Collector. It was great. And then he, went back to doing the trio stuff. And he obviously held the titles with Hangman, the tag titles. But I'm preferring to see him go after MJF at some point. Like I want to see that a babyface Kenny going after MJF. But it's good to see Kota being active. I will say I do have a little bit of an issue with things like this sometimes. Like I get guys got to work, they got to make money, and I'm all for that. I just wish like promoters would get a guy, lock them in, and maybe it's on Kota, but it's similar to Andrade. Andrade was out for so long. We didn't know what was going on. He was injured. And then he shows up on kind of an independent show prior to coming in on Collision. It's like when these guys have been away for a while, I hate when they pop up first in a smaller company before coming back in a big way on a national global stage. So I would have preferred to see Kota come back in a big way first, then do something like this. But I get it, man. I'm not going to hate because they got to make their money however they see fit.
So we'll see what the G1 Climax has for us coming up in about a week and a half now. And Kota Ibushi's legacy is tied with that tournament. And like we said, his last match ever was there, to suffer that shoulder injury, that his career never will be the same again. I think there's like a turning point where it's before and after that shoulder injury, right. And we'll see what holds for the career. And sometimes post-injury and recovery, look at Shawn Michaels. A lot of people can make the argument that after his back injury, things got better and he had a better second half of his career. So hopefully the same is for Kota going into this later half of his career. There's a lot of miles on that body, dude. We talked about that match with Ospreay and Omega. That dude was doing that nightly in New Japan Pro Wrestling, dropping on his neck. Those matches with Naito, man, if you got those matches, like it's hard to watch because of the bumps they were taking. There's no way to fake some of those dragon suplexes on the apron where they're landing directly on their neck. It's just
That's what's
It's
crazy
insane.
when you see people like Suzuki and Ishii and some of these older cats still out there doing it after some of this. I saw a spot that Omega and Ishii did where he gets a Snapdragon through a table off of the apron from Kenny Omega. And I'm like, yeah, that's how you shorten your career. But the Stone Pitbull's still out here doing things. So
I don't think
it's
anything's
wild.
breaking. I don't think anything's breaking Ishii's neck. It's like,
No, no.
It's not a stack of dimes, as Stone Cold would say. But we
Right.
go into our another story here. AEW's second episode of Collision. We saw a significant drop from the premiere. So according to WrestleNomics on Twitter, the second episode of Collision had an average of 595,000 viewers with a 0.21 in the 18 to 49 demographic. So we can compare that to the week before with 816,000. But I think, again, we talked about last week, it's not about comparing the numbers to SmackDown or even Dynamite. It's about comparing what is in that slot normally on a Saturday for TNT. And the thing is, it's crushing whatever that is. So at this point, people need to just accept it's a Saturday. People are going to consume it differently, and it's going to take time to grow and get people to get used to tuning in. I'm not alarmed by this number at all.
No, and I think I'd heard that this second episode of Collision, although it dipped in ratings, it was still number 5 on the night, and it was going against a couple other I can't remember, maybe college baseball play, something.
The World
big.
Series was the first week, the College World Series. That's over now. But yeah, there's other things. Saturday has UFC prelims. Like,
right.
A lot of stuff going on.
Here's the thing. It's not about the overall number. It's more about, like you said, the time slot against what would TNT put on there and how much would that do for them? A number like this could be a big success. And we talked about it. The Nielsen ratings are so antiquated at this point. And I think Mike was talking about a lot of people are dropping out of not accepting those ratings anymore because they're not modernized to the way people view. So take all of this rating stuff with a grain of salt. You got to look at the broadcast channel. What are they wanting for that time slot? No one expected a ton of, honestly, 800,000 that first week. I was like, damn, I'm shocked. I was expecting 4 or 5, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. If it continues to drop week to week, maybe there's an issue, but as of right now, I think all the like people crying and screaming for, the roof is going to fall in. I think we need to pump the brakes on that. So
speaking of Collision and where my collider's at, CM Punk is talking, about heels in season 2. We got AJ Mendez joining, aka AJ Lee, during her time at WWE. She's retired from pro wrestling, but her acting career is just getting started. So it seems like she's going to be involved with this show and been highly acclaimed. I know you said you watched it yourself.
Yep.
And enjoyed it. So awesome news to see AJ getting some work there on this heels thing with, Stephen Amell. That's, a big piece to the wrestling landscape that isn't just in the ring.
Yeah, it was a fun show. Me and Cassie watched the first season, probably going to tune into the second season. If Mick Foley popped in the first season, CM Punk had a recurring role. Now AJ Mendez. If you're a wrestling fan and you want just a good hour drama that's not breaking barriers down, but it's a fun hour of your week to kind of escape into, yeah, check out Heels.
Speaking of other things we're looking forward to, AEW officially announced the next Grand Slam event at Arthur Ashe, as we talked about, but also Blood and Guts at the TD Garden in Boston. So our very own MVP Marco should be in the building for that. I think that's what he said. So
yeah,
Blood and Guts double cage, man. I think this is something that has always been circled for the lead in the BCC. I think everybody knew it would end that way. Third ever Blood and Guts match. It debuted back in May 2021 with MJF leading the Pinnacle against Jericho's Inner Circle. Just 1 year later, Jericho again was involved with the JAS taking on the BCC. Man, a lot of fun. Can't wait for this. Blood and Guts is something I look forward to every single year. It never disappoints.
Yeah, I love that Jericho kind of went Inner Circle and then JAS and then passed the baton on to BCC, who JAS went against. Now BCC is going in against the Elite. If you remember last year's Blood and Guts, it was an absolute bloodbath. Like, Cool Hand Ange and Daddy Magic were just bleeding like stuck pigs. this will be fun. I'm interested to see what the teams look like because we got Danielson hurt. Or is this going to be a 5-on-5? Or are we going to go 4-on-4? So it'll be interesting to see how this fills out.
Yeah, I think the Danielson thing adds a lot of conversation to it. And maybe, again, we talk about Ibushi. Maybe Ibushi gets involved in this. And from now until middle of July, we have, he's active. We know he's healthy.
Yep.
And, he fits with the elite. So maybe we find a way to shoehorn him in. And with the different dynamic now, I think it's a lot of fun. Who else is going to team with the BCC? Obviously, Dukesh is going to be in there. But is there somebody else that can fit to take Danielson's mantle and all that? But, yeah, good times ahead for us for AEW programming.
Absolutely.
So speaking of good programming here, MLW Never Say Never has a match on the docket called a country whipping match, an open draft. This could be on July 8th. So it's going to be a leather strap match on MLW Fusion, not settling things with Mance Warner and Sam Adonis. So it was announced on Fusion this week, the controversial ending of the leather strap match between Warner and Sam Adonis. They would meet in a country whipping match at Never Say Never. This is going to be July 8th. Which is as of record time 6 days from now, as of air time 5 days from now. So MLW kind of under the radar. Haven't talked a lot about them aside from the court case with WWE, but they deserve some recognition. There's some good stuff going on their end.
Yeah, quietly putting together some fun things, and I think they have a sleeper roster too. We always talk about Impact having this roster that's pretty incredible. MLW has a pretty damn good roster too. So I'll be keeping my eyes on Never Say Never on July 8th.
So the final news in our quick hitters here, it's Billy Corgan and NWA. And we've heard Billy Corgan speak about a lot of things, but this is something that a lot of people have been asking me about. So he's on the Steve Fall of Wrestling News Co. podcast talking about NWA and talking about potentially holding a show WrestleMania 38 weekend in Dallas, Texas, and then said due to undisclosed circumstances, those plans fell through. Then he pretty much talked about how he's been hesitant to mold an event around that. We know the hesitancy around originally AEW. They want nothing to do with that, and we can kind of make our assumptions about why. But Billy Corgan said, I've been reluctant to do it for a variety of reasons. I do think it's weird, and I'm just saying this is an overall point, that if you're trying to compete with WWE, and I'm including myself in that categorization because obviously everybody who's out there is trying to compete with everybody else. If WWE is the market leader, you're trying to compete with them. Aren't you reinforcing it? If you're appearing in the same town of the week that they do, basically trying to glom onto their audience that's coming in. So again, he talks about the talent coming in and speaks about as a company that they should be doing something like that. But I think this is his perception about what NWA is, similar to what Tony Khan, what he views AEW is. You don't want to be this caboose to the train of WrestleMania. But I think in a business sense, it makes the most sense, which is why we see Tony Khan running ROH that weekend for the history and also just makes sense as a brand.
Yeah. And he said, as far as NWA mounting a show and sharing a stage in a very crowded stage on WrestleMania weekend, he's like, I hear the stories where people spend a lot of money to put a card on there. The card looks good. And then 47 people show up at the show because there's another show at the same time that people want to go to more. He said, it seems a little bit risky. I know he's I get the whole AEW. I don't want to seem like I'm riding the coattails of the industry leader. I get that. But for NWA, dude, you're not number 2. You're not number 3. You're probably in a dogfight for number 4 or 5. Like if I was you, I would probably be running an event here. But Corgan never, I don't know. A lot of his business moves, I feel like he's not a risk taker. And I get it. It's his own money. He's not this billionaire with a little bit more money to throw around, but he definitely plays it safe. And I think you can do that, but growth doesn't happen as quickly when you play it that safe. Your growth is very minuscule compared to someone who's willing to roll the dice. And I think GCW's even passed them up. But they're willing to roll the dice on things. So yeah, I think he's playing it safe, sometimes a little too safe.
Yeah, agreed. Let's get to Dave's Raves and talk about what he thought about in the newsletter of this week. Dave Raves. All right, right, so every Friday we see a new newsletter drop for Dave Meltzer, and we put the section here for reasons just as this. Everyone was talking about what exactly is Omega and Ospreay going to garner on the star scale with Meltzer. Well, we have that answer. So he gave the match at Forbidden Door a even 6 stars. It did not top their Wrestle Kingdom match from January, which was 6.25. So if he uses his match of the year metric on his end, you know that it hasn't topped it, but I think this is the second highest rated match. Everyone's going to be competing for number 2. If anything can pass that, I'd be amazed to see it. But he said some interesting things about what this match meant and just the risk that these guys took in this match and continue to take in other matches. Meltzer said Omega and Ospreay are so driven to put on classic matches that they've taken themselves to a dangerous place in attempting to top the levels they've already reached. And he says, we are long past the days when Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat could have one of the best matches anyone had ever seen and then come back the next day and pretty much do it again. He says Omega and Ospreay are working matches that have career-shortening consequences. Ospreay at 30 has talked about giving up independent booking soon because of all his injuries that he's working through. Omega's injuries were devastating throughout 2021 when he was consensus wrestler of the year until he had to take 9 months off for surgeries and healing to come back strong. And he also says what we talked about last week. In this match, he took a Tiger Driver 91, which Ospreay is now marketing as the Storm Driver 93, basically dropping Omega on his head. Omega tilted his head before landing, but it was still very concerning. He finished the match and said afterwards he was okay. He continues to talk about how scary it was, career shortening, and all the injuries, and Bryan Danielson being asked about it. I like that this lives in this document now. Now we can kind of reference this, and we've been doing this in Shot Nostalgia where I go back and read the newsletters. In 2023, this is what it's about, man. This is, although the match itself remembered for the stuff in the ring, the consequences after the fact. Will Ospreay being only 30 with all these, I can't see him wrestling until 40 at this level. There's no way. And maybe that's not the way he wants it. You want a Brian Bright, not long. Like he wants to go out there and give it his best and have these memorable matches. And I think at this point, Ospreay has the most 5-star matches on the Dave Meltzer star scale, which whatever that means to somebody, clearly is someone that is held in high regard. But at 30 years old, man, when he's not even just taking independent bookings, this guy has a lot on the line here.
This is what he wouldn't be where he's at right now if he wasn't wrestling like he does.
True.
If he was wrestling safe, we wouldn't hear about this guy. He would just be another guy. And that's what kills me about Dave, man. And we're both fans of Dave. I love the Observer. But the thing that kills me, he's always giving these matches good high ratings on his scale. His scale, guys, not this wrestling scale. Dave created this scale. He's going to rate it the way he wants, but he gives him these high ratings, these barn burner matches. But he's always so like, these guys, and I get it. They could, but dude, these are grown ass men. They're going to wrestle the way they want to wrestle. And the reason you're giving them so much attention is because of the way they wrestle. If they were wrestling a safe style, Omega, Ospreay, all the New Japan guys, you probably wouldn't be hearing about it.
True.
Like, so it's kind of like, what do you want? You know, do you want unmemorable, safe stuff? Or do you want a little hint of danger? I'm always like, I come from, I had a grandfather growing up who watched boxing. So I grew up around combat sports where guys were putting essentially their lives on the line. And it was very dangerous. And you see a lot of those boxers I grew up watching now, you know, they have issues, CTE, all of this stuff. So I was kind of numb to, you know, that is what no one's holding a gun to your head to do this stuff. Glory comes at a cost. If you want to be the best and you want to say you're the baddest man on the planet, there is a sacrifice to that. And it takes a different human being like an Ospreay or an Omega to put themselves in dangerous situations like this. And I'm so used to seeing MMA fighters and boxing guys really get the shit beat out of them for that glory. You know, you can talk about the money, the prize fighting, the wins, the losses, all of that, but at the root of everything, and I'm sure a lot of these guys would say it, at the base root of it is you're searching for glory, to be able to call yourself the best. That comes at a price, that comes at a cost. And I respect the guys willing to risk it all for that glory. I love it. That's what makes me watch this shit.
Absolutely. And he referenced, and a lot of people referenced, the 90s All Japan matches that were going on that could be used as an indicator of what will happen down the line. All of these dudes, most of them had serious problems, died young, developed drug issues. And we hope that's not the case with the current work rate. But we've seen a guy like Misawa with, he died in the ring from a back suplex because of everything that went down in the build up to it. So it wasn't the suplex itself, but it was taking moves like that Tiger Driver 91 over and over again, where your neck is just like one small step could end your life.
But I know Dave said on the podcast too, he was like, look, a lot of injuries happen off of basic moves.
100%.
A hip toss, something that you wouldn't even can be hey, I'm on the shelf for a year. So it's like, it's a risk versus reward thing, man. Like it's that glory I talk about.
Agreed.
Like,
I just think it's the wear and tear that Omega may have been 100%. Fine. He might have been fine at that press conference, but it's down the line somewhere down. They build up. But like you said before, these guys wouldn't be who they are if they weren't able to work the style they want to work, and they will be remembered fondly for it. But hopefully at the end of the day, they're able to enjoy a life outside of the ring. But right now, they're living in the here and now, and they are remembered as two of the best to ever do it. This match will be one of the best matches that you could ever watch. Omega's been a part of a lot of them. Ospreay's been a part of them. I don't think there's been two matches back-to-back that people have had against each other that can be compared to these two matches as far as match quality goes. What are the consequences for it? I don't think Omega and Ospreay care. At the end of the day, they want to be remembered as the best to ever do it. And that just speaks volumes to where the work rate and wrestling has come to a point where it's not about Meltzer scale. I don't think they have that in their mind. They're competing with themselves. How do we be better than that first match we had at Wrestle Kingdom? You could make the argument this one was, but now you're looking at All In at Wembley for the same IWGP US Championship. How are they going to step it up to that next level? And they're going to try. What are they going to do? And I think that gets people to tune in, but also has a lot of people nervous.
No, 100%.
So that being said, let's get to the week ahead, talk about all the stuff we have to preview for this great week of wrestling.
The week ahead.
All right, some good stuff on the docket. You guys are watching this during Monday Night Raw. We only had one match announced. It's for the Women's World Championship. Rhea Ripley defending against Natalya. We have Money in the Bank fallout, maybe some Damian Priest stuff, but that's Raw for Monday. We also have on Tuesday NXT on 4th of July. It's taped, preempted already, so you guys can get the results if you guys are out having hot dogs and fireworks and all that. So NXT's already filmed. Eddie Thorpe with Gable Stevenson versus Damon Kemp in an NXT Underground match. The Dyad, Jagger Reed, and Rip Fowler versus the Creed brothers, Brutus and Julius, in a loser leaves NXT match. Other stuff on the docket. I would read the results. Go enjoy time with your family. Don't watch wrestling on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
On Wednesday, we have Dynamite with the Blind Eliminator Tournament quarterfinals. Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland versus Orange Cassidy and Darby Allin. We also have the Blind Eliminator Tournament quarterfinals. MJF and Adam Cole versus a mystery opponent. The Owen Hart Foundation Women's Tournament quarterfinals. Britt Baker versus Ruby Soho. And Kenny Omega versus Wheeler Yuta. Quietly a stacked card on Wednesday.
Yeah, Omega Yuta I'm looking forward to.
On Impact, we have John Gresham versus Alan Angels, Frankie Zarin versus Eddie Edwards. We are just on the precipice for the go-home show for Slammiversary. One more show in between, and then it's off to the races for the biggest event of Impact for the year. Make sure you guys tune into Brace for Impact and check us out.
Yeah, that'll be a good one. Slammiversary, this build is going to be awesome.
For Friday on 7/7, the United States Championship on the line. Austin Theory defending against Sheamus, AJ Styles versus Karrion Kross, and Grayson Waller effect with the guest Edge. So Grayson Waller fresh off that rub with John Cena at Money in the Bank. Thought he held his own. Unlike his counterpart on the same card, Austin Theory against John Cena. I thought Grayson Waller walked out smelling like roses against a guy like John Cena.
I think the guy has star potential, honestly.
On AEW Collision, I think we get a live version of this, but we have the AEW Tag Team Champions FTR versus Juice Robinson and Jay White in a title eliminator match. And they have not announced it yet, but we do have the quarterfinals coming up between Samoa Joe and Punk. Is it going to happen on Collision next week? I don't know if they announce it.
I think they did announce it. I think it's Punk Joe.
Good. Okay, I'm glad because they didn't make it clear. I know that match could be a main event on any event, so maybe they were going to hold it off for a bit. And then we also have MLW Never Say Never on 7/8, headlined by Alex Hammerstern versus Alex Kane for the MLW World Heavyweight Championship. The tag titles on the line. And a Fans Bring the Weapons match, the Samoan SWAT team, Juicy Fanu, and Lance Anoy versus The Calling, Akira and Ricky Shane Page. We got JACOB FATU. Hopefully he shows up for this booking for the National Openweight Championship against Calvin Tankman, who, by the way, love Calvin Tankman, by the way.
He's a beast.
World Featherweight Championship versus the WXW World Women's Championship, Delmi Exo versus Ava Everett. And as we mentioned, the country whipping match, Mance Warner versus Sam Adonis. We got the 2023 MLW Open Draft. A lot on the line here, man. Some good stuff for MLW.
Yeah, Timothy Thatcher going against Tracy Williams. Alex Kane in that Alex Hammerstone title match. Go back in our archives, visits the tavern. We spoke to Alex Kane on the come up right before he signed, right when he signed with MLW. That kid is off to the races. Watch Alex Kane, man. He's really good.
So we'll preview next week Impact Slammiversary on 7/15, headlined by Alex Shelley and Nick Aldis. And then we'll also preview AAA Triple Mania in Tijuana, 7/15, headlined by AEW star Kenny Omega and the AAA Mega Champion Elio Del Vikingo for that title. Rematch from Dynamite. Going to be awesome. A lot of good stuff on both nights. The same night they're having the same show. Wrestling Man is thriving.
Yeah, dude. So much good stuff. So much good stuff on the come up.
So that's all we got for the week ahead. Chad, lead us out. Tell us what's going on in the tavern. Give us our plugs and all the good stuff.
Yeah, go to theturnbuckletavern.com. Find everything. Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Subscribe, follow. We appreciate any of that. Go so far. I'll be returning to the flagship. I will be returning to the debate. Everything's going great. Raw Down, check it out. Brace for Impact Thursdays. You get a double dose of Raw Down and Brace for Impact, WWE and Impact, and Fig Night Tuesdays. Tons of stuff happening here. Just go support us. theturnbuckletavern.com.
Tune in Friday, season 4 debut. Myself, Colton, and Mike Belcaster for Smoky Mountain Wrestling, episode 1, January and February, covering all things Smoky Mountain. Thank you guys for the support for 1998 season 3. Happy to say welcome to 1994 Smoky Mountain Wrestling as we say goodbye to 1998 WWF, dude. Great time. Can't wait for it. Make sure you guys tune in on Friday. And like Chad said, tune into everything on the tavern. We got stuff for you 6 days a week. And I also believe on Sundays we're having the AW wrap-up show. I'm not sure exactly where that lives, but make sure you guys tune in for that.
Yeah, whenever they launch that, just subscribe and you'll see it pop up in your feed. We have so much going on. It's a fun time to be a wrestling fan. Come have fun with us at the tavern. Until next Monday, guys, when we wine and dine with you kings and queens, stay out of the alley and away from those pork and beans. God luck and good speed.
Reach for the sky, boy.